we've had a lot of novices.
Cool.
But it's okay because the whole style is conversation. There's nothing like we just talk and that's it.
I think I'm good at talking. We'll figure it out.
Well, your story's a good one. It's going to be a good one.
So
and speaking of, we're rolling.
We're rolling,
girls. Yeah.
All right. So welcome back to the Original Liberals podcast, where we are reclaiming the name liberal one episode at a time from the neo left. And today we have a very special guest. This is Sam. Sam is going to tell us her story about her. Well, actually, we should back it up a bit. Sam just got her United States citizenship officially, correct?
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yep.
Speaking
Cheers
of,
to
I'm
that.
gonna grab a beer to that.
Let's wait 1 second for Ben to get a beer so that we can have a
Gotta get a beer
three-way
for that, boys and girls.
cheers.
Cheers.
Congratulations, Sam.
Welcome to America. Welcome to the American dream.
Someone told me welcome to the shit show, so I felt very welcomed.
Partially true, maybe. Welcome to the shit show. I love it. But yeah, I don't want to tell your story for you, but just to kind of give a little backstory. Sam came here as a child from Mexico, and I don't think you're really supposed to ask women how old they are, so I'm not going to. But Sam's been here for a number of years and finally made it official. So
Well, you and I were at a comedy show last night.
We were, yes.
We were at the Comedy Cabana, and I think both comedians said you're not supposed to ask a girl her age.
They did. It
is.
I wonder if that just kind of stuck in my head.
Maybe it just stuck in our heads. Maybe we're getting better with age. I don't know. What do you think? Anyways.
I don't know. But, so yeah. So first of all, how old were you when you came to America?
So I literally entered Texas a week before I turned 3.
A week before you turned 3. So you don't remember, obviously.
I don't remember a lot. I remember we came through Greyhound, so I remember being on a bus, and I do remember like going through all the check-ins and things like that. I don't.
What do you mean by check-ins?
So like going through security and entering the country and all of that. But past that, as far as like how I ended up in South Carolina.
So we're not talking about a situation where like your family paid a coyote to get you across.
No.
Okay.
Fortunately, we weren't one of those situations. I do know people who came that way, and it was a very traumatic experience. I was actually in kindergarten with a kid who got here that way, and they had a police officer, come and visit. I think it was like Red Ribbon Week or something, and he panicked and locked himself in the bathroom.
Really?
Because he was so traumatized from the experience of having to cross over that way and running from
Please forgive me. What would be so traumatic about the way that's done? I'm curious about some of the details.
Yeah, so you're quite literally just walking and hiding from immigration. It's
okay.
Think of it as if you have warrants out and you see blue lights. The first instinct you're going to have is to, run and hide. So when immigrants are coming over that way, that's, what they have to do is run and hide. And so that was still very much present with him whenever he got here.
I'd imagine the folks that are crossing over that way are quite vulnerable as well, in the sense that the other people who know that what they're probably doing see them as a vulnerable target.
What do you think? You can't go to the cops.
Yeah.
So when you can't go to the cops, you're immediately.
There's a lot of like sexual assault stories too, because the coyotes know, like you're not going to go to. Who are you going to go to and say, hey, this happened to me because I was trying to cross over illegally and the guy who was bringing me assaulted me.
Wow.
So there's a lot of crazy stories. It's not anything fun for sure, and like the kids who come that way, at least in the early ages, are very traumatized from it.
An act of desperation.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So you came on a bus then?
Yes, so I got to come in on a bus.
So did you come legally? Did your family come legally?
Yeah, we came in on a tourist visa.
Okay.
And we actually did that a couple of times, and we would just always return when it was time to go home. And then the last time, my parents really liked it, so we just stuck around.
Got it. So you entered legally, but you didn't stay legally.
Didn't stay legally.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the last time you said you were 3, that was the last time. That was when you came and didn't return.
Yeah.
And where did you settle at? At first, I know where you settled at now, but
yeah. So we always came to South Carolina, the town that I grew up in. We had family that was already there.
Okay.
So I think kind of what snowballed it all was I had an uncle who got here during the amnesty, and so he was able to get.
What is the amnesty?
So I don't remember which administration it was, but there was basically it gave immigrants that were in the country their citizenship or a path to citizenship.
Okay.
And so when that happened, like a flood of immigration, occurred.
Kind of, is that, do you feel like, not to switch, just curious about your opinion on it. Do you feel like that's maybe what's going to happen now with the flood of immigration that's going on? Is that the plan? There'll be like an Ellis Island kind of thing?
It kind of backfired financially when it did the first time it occurred. So I'm kind of on the middle on that. I don't feel like there's a heavy possibility that it's going to occur again. Just because, again, it backfired a little bit.
Sure. But please forgive me. Go back to your story.
Yeah. No, it's totally cool because that's how we ended up here. I had a family member who came and was able to get a path to citizenship, and then my parents were like, "Whoa, I want to do that. It's going to happen again." It happened one time, and so we came in with the rush, and
it hasn't happened since.
And it hasn't happened since then,
Yeah,
we've been here for 20 some years, 25 years, I think. So. That's why I'm kind of like, I don't think it's going to happen because it's been so many years.
Sure.
She may have just inadvertently told us her age.
I did.
No, but kind of lost my train of thought. That'll happen sometimes.
Yeah. No, I
So you moved straight from, you passed through Texas. Mm-hmm. And because you knew people in South Carolina, you had family that had already come across into the States. You went straight to South Carolina?
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we came straight to South Carolina. I grew up in a big tobacco farm, so agriculture, farming needed a lot of help on the farm.
Yeah.
I actually lived on one of those, like, I don't know if you've ever heard, like, the migrant houses where, like, they bring migrant workers in for seasonal work and then they give them somewhere to live for a little while during that work period. So we actually lived on one of the farms.
Is there kind of a unspoken network in place like that for folks who did come across the border, maybe not necessarily legally?
Yeah, no, for sure. It kind of becomes like we want to help you out because we've been there and we know the situation and we struggled. So here's something for us to help you. There's actually, and I don't know how popular of like information this is, but there's actually a lot of programs in place for folks who come in and can't really get work any other way. And so there's like a whole like migrant network, like you said. They provide them with some form of like health care. Oftentimes there's hired translators to help them like get to the doctor and do things like that. And they just kind of move around the country from season to season.
Are these networks like kind of like, are they legal or are they
half and half?
Yeah, I was
like
gonna
definitely
say,
the
if they're
health
finding
insurance
work.
aspect of it, like that's out there for them. You don't have to have a social security number necessarily to be able to qualify for these programs. And some of these programs even like help kids get into like certificate programs, like to become like a photobotomist and things like that. Okay. And then the other half of it is, like these folks aren't here legally. So, farmers need help and they know that there's a group of people out here who's willing to go out there and do the dirty work.
Sure,
and
cheap.
So, honestly, dirt cheap.
Yep.
So, they bring them in and just kind of tell them, okay, the next place we're going to ship you to is this state. This is what you're going to be doing. Here's what you can expect the pay to be like.
So there is a network of farmers that need help who mutually agree with a network of migrants who need work. And because of their mutual gain, it actually helps out both.
Yeah.
At a lowered cost to the business, of course. And even when things end in one place, they already know where they can be going to the next.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Okay.
So they have work year round, and they don't really have to do a whole lot of guessing. They typically just go to. There's often like a foreman involved at each farm, and that foreman sets up. Okay, we're done here. We no longer need work, but I have contacted this other foreman. They have work for X amount of time. we're going to have a bus come and pick you up and take you to this place for this amount of time. So.
I have to assume there's not a whole lot of labor laws being followed, though. So.
Oh, no.
None.
Yeah.
So, like,
So you're really talking about a situation where, I mean, these people need help. They need work. People have to work to live, but they're also being taken advantage of. Is that what? Would you say so or not?
They kind of are being taken advantage of in the sense that they're not paid very well, and because of their status, the housing isn't always great. I don't remember a whole lot about the house that we stayed in when we were in the farm. I do remember thinking like it was kind of old and run down, but then as we got older, I grew up in church. My dad was a minister, so we used to go and minister to the farm hands. And the houses that those people lived in were literally falling apart, like holes in the floor, roofs that leaked, no central air. One house didn't even have like central electricity at all. It was out in the middle of the woods. Nobody knew it was there. So they aren't really taken care of. They're just kind of like, we'll pay you and you can make do with what we have, or you can figure it out.
And this is how you grew up?
That for a little while. So we did that until we did that a couple of years after we finally settled in. And then my dad got into the construction business, and he got in with a really good company in Myrtle Beach, and we moved out of there and we rented for a little while, and then he bought a piece of land and then a mobile home, and then years later he built his own house on it.
That's wonderful.
So, yeah, so he was like the example of the American dream that's being sold to immigrants. He was able to come here, and he now owns his own construction business. So
boy, you gotta be proud of him, huh?
Yeah, so we really started from like, whoa, we're somewhere we have no, we don't understand the language, don't understand the culture, to he's like running a whole ass business now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you got into the normalized school system?
Yeah, so that was actually kind of a traumatic experience for me. Obviously, living at home and living with, other Spanish-speaking individuals, all I spoke was Spanish. So I actually didn't learn English until I started school. I entered in like a pre-K program pretty much as soon as I got in, because I started school when I was 3. And I can remember my mom and my aunt dropping me off and like looking through the little glass window in the door and like, hey, have a good day and we'll see you after school. And then at the end of the day, there were kids who were picked up by their parents, and then there were kids who rode the bus, and I got stuck on the bus, but I had no idea what a bus was. I remember being very confused the entire day, and looking back at it now, it's probably because I couldn't understand what was going on around me, because I didn't speak
you don't even speak the language. Yeah.
And you said you were only 3?
Yeah, I was.
Wow.
3. So I got stuck on the bus, and I didn't know where I was going. I thought I was being kidnapped, and I cried the entire way home. And then when my mom picked me up, she was like, at the bus stop, she was like, "What? Why are you crying?" I said, "Well, I didn't know where they were taking me. I don't know these people, and I don't want to go back to school."
Nobody can even tell you where they're taking. It doesn't matter what they say.
It didn't matter what they were saying to me. I couldn't understand it. It didn't take me very long to learn English, though, and I picked it up with the Southern accent, so that comes through.
It's amazing how fast kids can learn things like a language or anything else, really. When you're like 3, 4, 5 years old, it's just like, there you go. You just pick it up like it's nothing.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for the formative years. They call those the formative years.
For sure.
And to pick it up that early on is a huge step in the whole naturalization.
Because I never would have guessed her first language wasn't English.
No, absolutely not. No.
Yeah.
I never would have guessed it in the least.
I feel like my Spanish is not as good as it used to be. I don't practice it nearly as much as I did before. I'm married to an American who doesn't speak Spanish, so English is like our primary language at home.
Who's getting to watch the NASCAR race right now? She gets to avoid having to watch the NASCAR race by being with us, which is great.
Unbothered without me asking a ton of questions of who is who and does that guy have a punch me face.
That's hilarious.
Which everyone has a punch me face in NASCAR.
When you were a kid, did you realize... You must have at some point realized that you were here illegally and that there was that difference between you and everybody else.
Yeah. I actually, as a child, when I would hear, illegal immigration, my thought was always coming with a coyote, right? And I was like, well, we got here on a visa. I'm here legally.
Yeah.
It's fine. Everything's fine. And I actually didn't even realize my status until I was 13. And I was having a conversation with my friend about how we were going to be turning 15 soon. And she was like, oh my God, you're going to get your permit before I do. And, you know, then we're going to go to high school and we're going to be driving and we can take turns on who's picking who up and we'll carpool. And my mom happened to overhear the conversation. And when my friend left, she was like, hey, you know that you're not American. And I was like, yeah, everybody knows I'm not American because I used to tell everybody, like, I'm from Mexico. I was very proud about that. I didn't, you know, understand the complexity of it. And she was like, okay, but you know you're not getting your permit. And I was like, why am I not getting my permit? And she said, well, you're here illegally. I was like, no, I'm not. We have a visa. We have a visa. And she said, well, the visa expired. And so you're here illegally. And that was kind of the moment of realization of like, holy shit, I'm the same people that they're talking about on the television. And I didn't even realize it.
Wow.
It's good that you were 13, though, when you realized that, because you'd hate for a little child to develop with the self-identity of being, I'm an illegal person.
Yeah.
During those formative years we were just talking about. So it's actually kind of, she did you a huge favor by waiting to tell you as long as possible, it sounds like, from a developmental sense, I think.
Yeah, for sure, in that sense. Because it definitely did become my identity once I realized I was very much more aware of myself. Like, I grew up in a primarily white community, and I never really thought about that, or it was not present to me. You know, we were just all people. I didn't really compare my skin color to their skin color. And then after that happened, that conversation with my mom, I was very much more aware of like the dirty looks that I never, you know, really paid attention to before, or like the way people looked at us when we were in the grocery store speaking Spanish. It wasn't something that I was aware of, so I wasn't looking for it, and I didn't even realize it was happening. And then after that conversation, it was kind of like my eyes were opened to this entire like different world, and I started to pick up on it as, you know, going on around us. And so that was very different. My teen years were very rough because of, I really didn't have a sense of like who I was.
Who does?
Mine was more confusing in the sense that, you know, I always said I was Mexican, but I didn't really put much thought into what that meant. And I always felt like an American. And then after that conversation, it was like, well, I don't know anything about home. You know, it's been years since we've been. I spoke to my family members from Mexico, but we didn't have like this line of communication that was open, or where I like spoke to my family very frequently. At the time, in order to call internationally, you had to buy phone cards. And so
Remember those?
Yeah.
so you bought the phone cards and you had like X amount of minutes to call and speak to your family. And so we did that, you know, every couple of months or once a month, you know, ever frequently my parents were able to purchase one of those cards. But we didn't speak to, or I didn't speak to like my aunts and uncles or my grandparents very frequently. So I didn't feel like I was Mexican in the sense that I knew anything about Mexico or the culture outside of what, you know, my parents brought me up in. And then, well, now I was told
You're Mexican the way that, like, my guy down the street who's my neighbor is Italian. He's like,
exactly.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I grew up feeling very much American, and I think the best way to describe it was I felt like my home country didn't want me because I didn't know anything about the culture, or like being a Mexican. And then here I was in the country that I felt like home, being told I wasn't even supposed to be here. So it was like, I don't belong here, but I also don't belong there. So like,
is that difficult for someone to never feel that place, that nationality of home?
Yeah, it was very hard. It was very confusing, because I didn't feel comfortable like claiming my Mexican heritage anymore. And then I also felt very strange doing like the American things, because it's like, I'm not even supposed to be here. And now
It's tough on a kid.
now I'm here.
Yeah, because like Ben said, I mean, being a teenager is tough anyway. Like, it doesn't matter. You don't know your identity. None of us do. But then you could throw all that on top of it, and it's just like,
Yeah.
I can imagine that's difficult.
Yeah.
So, did you weren't able to get a driver's license or a permit or anything like that?
Not at that time, no. Obama came into administration not long after my 15th birthday, and he passed the DREAM Act. So I was able to obtain a permit through the DREAM Act. I went and applied for it, mostly because my parents were pushing me to do so. I wasn't a fan after I looked into it. There was no path to citizenship. In the state of South Carolina, there was no financial aid for high school students who graduated and want to go to college. You still had to pay international tuition, which is crazy expensive. Wouldn't be allowed to claim Social Security or Medicare. Mm-hmm. So it was like, okay, so I'm working for you so you can tax me for shit I'm never going to be able to have access to. Why not just let me keep my money?
Nah.
And, it just felt like...
We're all about that, aren't we?
Oh.
It just felt...
Operative word being my money, not their money. Anyways.
Yeah, so I think that's probably when I started thinking more like a conservative, when I realized, you're taking advantage of me being here and having a need and a desire to want to stay in the country in a way that's legal, that I'm willing to do whatever to do so, including accepting this, a lot of people,
So did you follow through with that then?
I did follow through, and I applied for the DREAM Act, and I got my work permit, and I got
How long did that take?
That was a very quick process. I applied, and I don't know, a few months later, my work permit came in.
So you said you were 15 years old, and then 15 when Obama came in, and roughly 16 when you applied?
Yeah.
Yep.
About 16 when I applied for that. I wanted to stay in the country, and my parents were like, okay, we'll stay in the country, and we'll just have to figure it out.
Was that always looming in the background that your parents would want to go back one day?
Not until I got closer to graduating high school.
Okay.
So up until that point, they were very comfortable being here in our situation and not...
Was a big part of their motivation for being here is for you to grow up somewhere that wasn't there?
Yes.
It sounds like it. If when you're getting older, they're finally starting to thinking about going back, it sounds like that was the reason they may have come here in the first place.
Yeah, it was definitely to bring us up in what they considered to be better than what we could have in Mexico.
Where did they come from?
So my mom's from off the coast of Mexico, and my dad's more south.
Which coast?
The
Gulf Coast or the Pacific?
No,
Pacific. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they actually met about 6 hours from the border. So we lived in Saltillo, Coahuila.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we stayed. So in Coahuila, the state of Coahuila, which is 6 hours from the border. And my dad actually had a really decent job. He worked for the state, so it was, a cushiony gig.
Okay.
I was referred to as the rich cousin.
Really?
So,
and they jumped ship anyway.
Yeah,
huh?
and we owned a house. So we went from that to living in a farmhouse, and my dad, working out in the fields. So it was always very confusing for me why they thought growing up here would be better for us, or for me in my case anyway, because I was, from the moment it was decided that they were going to stay, they were pretty much deciding to keep me in the country.
You said it was always confusing. Is it still confusing as to why they made that judgment call, or do you understand why they wanted you gone from there?
No, it's even more confusing now that I'm a parent.
Okay. Okay.
Just thinking about my children, and before making a decision like that, I would want to know what I'm signing my kids up for. Mm-hmm. And if I knew that I was going to sign up my kids to be in a place where they really had no opportunity at succeeding unless they were doing it under the table, I wouldn't do it personally.
What if your dad saw today in your future?
He probably did, honestly.
Sounds like a business owner And he sounds like a smart guy, and you're very well spoken. You're obviously a very smart person. You probably came from a pretty smart dude. Do you think he saw today in your future, meaning living the life you have now where you are? Then maybe that was the goal?
I think so. I think he's very driven and ambitious for sure, and he wanted us to be able to have more than, what he had growing up. And I think what he failed to realize is we already kind of had that when we were in Mexico, and he wanted more. Like I said, he had a pretty cushiony job. They always joked that we could have had a maid if we were in Mexico, and here we were in the States trying to figure out how to buy groceries. And so I never put thought into it. I didn't really understand how we lived in Mexico until like I said, became a parent and started thinking about things. So there, when we were growing up, it's always, we wanted you to have a better future. We wanted you to have more opportunities. America has a lot more to offer than what you could have had in Mexico. And our life would have, it definitely would have been different because I recently went to visit, and it was a culture shock. It's very different.
You went to visit the town you came from?
I went to I landed in Guadalajara. My brother actually got married in Mexico.
Oh, okay.
So I landed in Guadalajara, and then we drove about 4 hours to where the resort was at. But just landing in Guadalajara and seeing how such a big town or city is so underkept. I feel like Myrtle Beach can sometimes be a little bit trashy and run down. It can. At least areas of it, and it looks very nice compared to what I saw in Guadalajara. And for it to have been, they have one of their largest airports there, so it's a huge tourist attraction, and it just wasn't you left the shadows, if you would, of the airport, and after that it was graffitied buildings and buildings that were half built and military trucks with army men holding their big old automatic rifles driving around the city.
Scary.
I've only ever experienced that once. That was Belize. I remember taking a bus across Belize, and the first time you're in that situation, being Americans, being out into another country, you see the military guys out with their guns, the way you're talking about it. It is weird, isn't it?
It's very weird.
Yeah.
And then even the structures of their roads are very different. We landed, we took a shuttle to the hotel we were going to stay at while we waited to get picked up to go to the resort, and we were on this road, right, and the hotel we were staying at was on the other side of the street. So here in America, you find somewhere to do a U-ey and you end up on the other side. Well, what we did was taking some beat up little side road that looked like it shouldn't have even existed, and then we started going through what looked like a tunnel to me, and I was like, oh my god, this is where we're gonna die. Because it just looked so sketchy, and there's a guy, a civilian, just waving you through, and then there's some other guys drinking their beer up against the building, and so we drive pretty much under the road that we had been on to get to the other side to get to the hotel. But it wasn't a capped road. It was, like I said, it didn't even look like it was supposed to be there, and it was just very sketchy. So we possibly could have still had a good quality of life. It definitely wasn't what my father wanted for us.
I was going to say that the way you just described and painted that picture of Guadalajara, maybe that's what he was trying to avoid for you.
Yeah, for sure. I think that is what he was trying to avoid. I think I still would have made a different decision than he did, just because he got to experience life as an illegal immigrant as an adult, which is very different than experiencing it as a teenager.
Trying to find out who you are.
Yeah, exactly. So,
absolutely.
I spent a lot of time in high school, busting my ass, trying to make sure I had good grades. I graduated. I had a very small graduation class, but I still graduated in the top 10.
We always compare graduating classes on this show.
How many were in yours?
We had 180.
Oh, you were the biggest
Boy,
one.
that was a small one compared to my 41.
33.
Yeah, 33.
Wow. Okay. I feel better now.
The city kid over here.
But you graduated top in your class.
Yeah, I was in the top 10. I was 8th in my graduation class.
Cheers.
I think
Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers. I had like math was my where I wasn't the best school wise, anyways, and I had
Math sucks though. Let's be honest.
It was very.
There's something wrong with you if you like.
Yeah.
Sorry, if you like math, there's something wrong with you. All right.
I'll admit it's important, but it sucks.
It's super important, and I kind of appreciate the fact that you like it, but I still.
That way somebody else can do it for us.
You're gonna have to prove yourself with me a little bit more.
It definitely messed me up when they started throwing letters into the mix. I think that's where things went south for me. So I had like 4 B's my entire high school career, and
That's
it was
awesome.
math, because I was struggling in that area. And just the entire time I was in high school, my only goal was like to be as great a student as I could be, because I knew that if I graduated as an illegal immigrant, I was going to have to convince a college to take me in and to,
You're driven like your dad is. That's why she doesn't agree with him. She's exactly like him.
That is 100% accurate. My daughter, for sure. So I worked my ass off to try to, be at the top of my class. And, the ironic thing is I ended up not even going to college. I did all of that hard work, and then I was like, I don't want to do this. I started making money, and I was like, I'm already making money. Why do I need to go and spend more money in 4 years of my life?
Boy, I tell you what, there's a lot of people your age at that point in time that just went along with what everybody else thought they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
And those are the people you're hearing about now that have an advanced degree in basket weaving and $100,000 of debt at 19% interest. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And the careers that I was pursuing, honestly, weren't even like advanced degrees or anything. I think what really kind of discouraged me was I went to one of the local tech schools here in Horry County, and I wanted to go into construction management because my dad has a construction company, and we were very family oriented, and so it's like, this is already established in here. Might as well learn a skill or two that's going to help him grow. Yeah. And I went, and they were like, "Oh, you're going to have to pay international tuition, and you're not going to be able to afford the international tuition, so we can't accept
I'm just curious, what is the international tuition? Do you know?
I honestly don't even remember. I remember thinking, like, it's really high compared to, like, it was, like, double what,
significantly more expensive than,
and it was crazy to me because, like, I heard of, like, some schools offering out-of-state tuition to non-Americans, but everywhere, like the places I turned to, it was like, oh, you're going to have to pay international tuition, and it's really expensive. You're not going to be able to afford it. You're going to have to need. I also didn't qualify for financial aid because I wasn't here legally, so I would have to take out loans.
So even after the DREAM Act portion of things, there was no path to citizenship. There was no added bonus that, hey, I'm exempt because of the DREAM Act. I'm signed up under this. You can consider me pseudo-American because of this. There's nothing like that in place as part of the DREAM Act.
Not in South Carolina. I had heard that states like Texas.
Right, because every state has its own right to make those determinations.
Like
That's
the
right.
state of Texas did have some leniency and offered certain scholarships and financial aid to their students. But in South Carolina, there was none of that.
Okay.
So, very conservative state, and they stuck to their guns in that sense, which who blames them, right? And that detoured me just from wanting to, like, seek a college education. I wasn't going to try to prove myself to people who didn't think I was worth their time, or that was my mindset. And I took a 3-month H&R Block class and started doing taxes the season after that.
You were good at math.
The computer does everything for you, so I didn't have to be good at math, thankfully. So I did that for about a season. At the time, the employer I was working for wanted to get into the insurance industry. Her son had been doing that for her office, and they had a huge falling out. Like, my first day of work, she sent me back home because the cops were there, and she had a locksmith there to change the locks because her kid had, like, broken into the office.
Wait, that was your first day of work?
Yeah.
Sent you home because she knew you were illegal. No.
I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Didn't want you to get deported.
Yeah. her and her son had such a huge falling out. Like, he came in and took all the office equipment, cleaned her clean, and
so it had nothing to do with you. It was just
she was actually also Hispanic. Ironically, up until like my second or third job, I didn't work for an American. I always worked for Latinos.
I was going to say it's probably a lot easier for a Latino to be empathetic with what another Latino is going through, and it's I guess point of camaraderie in a sense that, hey, I can hire you, and then you can come bring yourself up, and there's nothing wrong with that. No. I don't think. But if you guys don't mind, I'm going to take a little break.
Yeah.
All right. You guys want to take a quick break?
Sounds good.
All right. Cigarette break. All right. Back. And we're back.
Here we are.
Here we are, guys. Got another new beer from Matt, and I got a little nicotine in my system. And you just quit smoking.
So I got fresh air.
So you got fresh air. So did I. Yeah.
Good enough.
Well, we've kind of gone over your origin story, so to speak, right? Now, as someone who was coming into adulthood, you said something outside that I wanted to address. You said that when you were 18, it was your own fault if you're not an American, from your perspective.
Yeah.
I love that. But go ahead.
Yeah. I through high school, it was always, I'm going to be in the States, I'm going to be in the States. And then after that, it's, okay, and then what happens when I turn 18 and I'm here and I'm not an American and, I didn't figure it out. Like that's...
How did you start the process?
That's the part where I'm trying to figure out how to word it. So I was adopted by an American couple, and it was not a great environment for me. They were stereotypical Southern Baptist family, a preacher and his wife, and so I was just the charity case of the year.
Okay.
So they moved me in with them, and...
Don't say anything here that you would regret everybody knowing. I just want to put that perspective on it, all right? You can keep it as general as you want to or as specific as you want to, just whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Was the adoption done as was the purpose of that to increase your likelihood of becoming a citizen?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's how it ties in.
Yeah. And it wasn't a good environment at all. And then they were mad that I applied for the DREAM Act and I got the work permit.
What did they want you to do instead? Why were they upset about that?
Honestly, they didn't know anything about immigration laws or how any of that worked, and they thought they did. And so they were very upset that they didn't have to sign. The whole purpose of the DREAM Act is that your parents don't have to sign any documents. You're basically petitioning for the work permit for yourself, because a lot of kids that were in my situation also had parents that were in similar situations. So, that would expose the parents who didn't have any, kind of protection for being in the country legally. And so when
that makes sense.
They didn't have to sign any paperwork, it pissed them off. And they didn't like it.
Because they wanted control on some level. They wanted to be able to sign those papers. Okay.
For sure. It was definitely about control. And in the end, they kicked me out of their house and didn't let me go back and get my things. And it was just we're done with
horrible.
this.
Yeah.
Do you have any speak to them at all anymore?
No. In fact, I saw them at Walmart a month ago and had a whole ass panic attack.
Really?
Because we haven't spoken since 2013.
Good for you for moving on the way you did. Because at 16 years old, it sounds like that's when this happened, 16?
Yeah. I had just turned 17. Yeah, I had just turned 17.
When you turned 18, you decided you needed to take control of your situation, basically.
Yeah.
So what steps did you take?
So I sought an immigration lawyer. There were fortunately a lot of different nonprofit organizations that helped people who were in situations that were illegally in the country, and also like in abusive situations. And so I just went and like presented my case, and it was just like, I'm not even 18. My legal parents have kicked me out of the house. They won't let me go back and get my things. Here are some of the like shitty things they ever said to me. And she was like, oh, you've got a case. So I pretty much, it's sort of like I, through immigration, sued them for like all the emotional and psychological abuse I had gone through in the time that I lived with them. And immigration deemed that that was enough abuse from an American citizen to grant me my U.S. residency.
Interesting.
Residency, not citizenship.
Not citizenship.
Right.
So the
but you're
first step,
here legally.
yeah,
Residency.
at that point, I'm here legally.
So what all can you do with a residency? How does that change your life on a day-to-day basis, or, you know?
Yeah, so residents can receive more like financial aid for one. So if I had wanted to go back to school, I'd been able to do that. Work-wise, it's not just a work permit. So I'm able to, that's another thing in South Carolina. With the DREAM Act, you couldn't apply for like any type of licensing. Like if you wanted to become an insurance agent or a licensed cosmetologist or, you know, a licensed contractor, you couldn't do any of that. You had to be at least a U.S. resident. So I was then able to get my insurance license. So that was the next thing I did, was I sold insurance. I became an insurance agent. It's pretty much a lot of the same things that U.S. citizens can do, except for vote. That was one thing I couldn't do as a U.S. resident, was vote. But everything else, I was able to work, buy a house, you know, get whatever type of licensing I wanted.
Okay. Did you pay cash for the house, or did you get a loan?
I got a loan.
Okay. So you were able to get a loan in the United States.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes it a lot easier too. With the DREAM Act, there were some places that would give you loans. It just kind of depended on the financial institution and like you know how they stood. Smaller places weren't very.
It sounds like it truly legitimized you to the point where you can start really making a real life.
Yeah, and it took a big weight off my shoulders too, because there was a lot of talk of the DREAM Act just like being shut down, and then that left a lot of us exposed. You know, like now immigration knows I'm here, and I'm telling them outright I'm here illegally. So what happens when it goes away and they have this information? Are they going to come knocking on my door and tell me, hey, you got to get out?
Imagine being here since you were 3.
I know, right?
And it's like,
it's crazy.
Time to go back to Guadalajara.
Exactly. And so I got my U.S. residency. It took that whole weight off of my shoulders. I got married. I had kids. And I actually could have applied for my citizenship a couple of years ago, because once you marry an American citizen and you're already a U.S. resident, you have the wait time to be able to apply for your citizenship is actually a lot shorter. But
they expedite that process if you've already, because you're married to an American citizen. Okay, which is, I guess, you know, what they talk about with all the Russian brides and things like that, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But I didn't want to do it that way, because I'd gone through this whole process without my husband, and I don't know. I told him that it kind of felt like if I did it because he petitioned for me, it almost like took something away from my story and all the crap I had to go through to get here to this point. So it just meant so much more to me to be able to go into immigration and say, hey, I did my time, I waited, you know, I'm ready to like take the oath and become a U.S. citizen.
It was about a 2-year process, you said?
The getting my residency was about a 2-year process, and then I had to wait, I think it was 7 years.
And that was the expedited version.
The expedited version would have been 5 years, actually.
Okay.
5 years.
Okay.
And then 7 years if I wanted to petition for myself.
Okay.
And then after, like, once I started filing my citizenship papers, I filed March of last year, actually. And I didn't hear from them until, like, December.
Welcome to American government, of course, yes.
And then I...
Sitting on somebody's desk. They probably do 5 a day.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, and the craziest part about it is, like, you have to pay these crazy fees. Like, I paid for an attorney to do it for me, so that was, you know, one thing separate. But paying for, like, the actual application fee, and you have to pay a biometric fee, so, like, they'll run your fingerprints. And sometimes you have to get like physicals done by specific doctors that are like contracted by the government. So I didn't pay because I went through a nonprofit. I was able to get waivers.
What are they looking for when they're doing the physicals? I'm like,
I did like a TB test and just like
There
a
you go.
general.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, you know.
that makes a little bit more sense. I'm thinking to myself, like, how do they care? But
Yeah.
like, oh, you got a bum leg, you can't be.
Because not every situation is yours.
Yeah.
I mean, they
Yeah.
might have just come across, and they may have been in an exposed area to. I mean, when I was in Belize, like I mentioned earlier, I had H1N1. I had the swine flu at the end of 2009,
Yeah.
early 2010. Almost killed me.
That's
But if I
crazy.
was not a legal American coming back into the States, I'm sure they would
They'd
have
probably be like,
do it.
okay, no thanks.
Yeah, they probably would have wanted to do a test on
Yeah.
someone like me, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry not to take it that direction, but I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
As you said that, it triggered a memory for me. When we were coming into the States, I actually had to get vaccinated before I could come in. When I think it was like the last time we came in, I had to get vaccinated as I was coming in.
Really?
To the States.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So there is kind of a federal mandate, and I know that they have a schedule for our children.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've had your
Yes.
and I've had my son on I guess on that schedule as well. But I guess they expect every adult American here that they can control enough to do so to be vaccinated the way they want them to be.
Yeah.
Interesting. Just a side note on things. Yeah.
There's a lot of government control.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is. Way
Still-
too much if you ask us.
Listen, way too much if you ask us, but still the best country in the world as far as I'm concerned
Yep.
too. All right. So I have a lot of love for it, but I have a lot of frustration.
Love
And I
my
think-
country, fear my government, man.
Yeah, there you go.
I feel like you're not.
It's the difference between spirituality and religion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the same difference. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So it took me pretty much a year because I didn't hear from immigration until December. My interview with them was in February. You basically just go to an immigration center and they assign you an immigration officer. That person is responsible for looking over your case and then interviewing you. The interview is
Get your parole officer. All right.
yeah,
All
pretty
right.
much. Like, have you gotten into any trouble, any
Uh-huh.
run-ins? Did you join any anti-government groups? And it's like, why would people answer yes to any of these questions? But okay. And then there's a list of 100 questions. And of those 100 questions, they're going to ask you 10 of them. And of those 10, you have to get 6 right. So I had to memorize and learn these 100 questions, which really wasn't hard. It's
Can I
all-
ask you how many you got right?
I got all 6 right, and she didn't even ask me anymore after that.
Really? I knew you were going to get them all right.
And,
Yeah.
and this is the naturalization process of it. Because one thing that from my age, which is quite about more than yours, and you probably remember as well, the hot button topic wasn't immigration, but it was immigration and naturalization,
Yeah.
because that was just as if not more important in the overall concept of things, is that someone is naturalized to the country as well. I always found that to be something that's missing
Yeah.
in the conversation nowadays. Is I'm not sure they want naturalization anymore,
No, they don't.
but that is something that I think you will go into talk with us about.
What kind of questions are there?
I mean, it's like history questions, like, what was the Boston Tea Party?
Cool.
And then government questions like, how many U.S. representatives do you have, or who's your state senator? And then, so it's basically just history and like civics, so like a government and economics class that you might
So
take in high
you
school.
probably know more than 95% of people who were born here now.
You and I just read that. You just thinking the exact same thing.
95%
Yep.
of people who were born here.
I feel like if I was put on the spot, maybe I'd blank, because that day I literally was like in the car and
Well, you're
my husband
taking a
was
test.
like,
That's
I was
nerve-wracking,
like, you got. I need you to quiz me. And he was like, you got a 97. I was like, no, I need 100. I need to know that I know all 100 questions because I don't know which ones I'm going to be asked. But I went in and I was like counting on my fingers how many questions
That's awesome.
I had been asked, and she asked me sex, and then moved on to the next thing, and I was like, yes, I did it.
Very cool.
I survived. And then they just ask you the questions off of your application, just to confirm that like you were honest on the application,
Right.
you know, trying to put you on the spot to see if they can catch you.
And you said this was just last December?
It was in February.
Last
Yeah,
February.
you get
So only a
your
couple months ago.
appointment- Yeah, you get your
Awesome.
appointment date and time a couple of months before the actual interview
Okay.
because they want you to have time to prepare for it. They're very big on you, you know, sticking to that. And if you have to miss it, you need to let them know as soon as possible that you need to reschedule. So they give it to you well in advance for you to make arrangements, you know.
Did you have to go to another big city somewhere to do all this where it's
I
all
had
done?
to go to Charleston.
You had to go to Charleston.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
another thing too. They'll assign you like which location you're going to go
Okay.
to. Like the location I went to for my residency was not the same as
So it was a federal building?
It's a federal building.
It's a federal building? Cool.
Yeah. And that was
None of this is done on the state level at all. This is purely a
Purely
federal. Okay.
Yeah, the state doesn't have anything to do
So
with that.
are you still a citizen of Mexico also?
No, that's actually part of the naturalization process. Is
Okay.
you have to denounce citizenship to all countries, to any
Interesting.
other countries that you.
There's no,
have.
there's
I
no
know
dual
that-
citizenship.
Well, there is dual
There is a
citizenship.
dual citizenship,
Okay.
and I believe that if you are interested in keeping your citizenship, you can make that request. That's not something I was interested in doing. My husband's here, my kids are here, my parents and my siblings are here. I didn't really grow up that close to the family I have in Mexico, so
There was no advantage to it for
there
you.
was no advantage
Yeah.
to me having dual citizenship, and it just made more sense to just cut to the chase.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, very cool. And when did you officially become a true blue, red-blooded, guns, beer, and NASCAR loving American?
She does.
Yeah.
No NASCAR, right?
We love NASCAR. No, not really.
But when did it happen for
That
you?
was March 26th.
So we're talking about shade under a month ago.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I love it.
Brand new.
Cheers.
awesome.
Original Liberals, cheers.
Yeah.
Yes.
I joke now, and I'm like, that's my new birthday. Like that.
Does it feel like that?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It really does. It's when I received the call, because all my mail went to my attorney, right? And so they got the letter that my citizenship, my oath ceremony was on such and such date and such time, and congratulations. And when I got the call, it just didn't really even feel real, honestly. It wasn't, and I think until just days recently that it's really settled in. I still felt very not real to me. It was such a long process to get here that I couldn't fully accept and process that it was done and over with, and that was a chapter.
Like 25 years of a process. That's
Yeah.
Well, you talked earlier about your struggle for self-identification.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that finally solidified that
Yeah.
self-identification?
Yes, it did.
And maybe that's the
it's-
difference in like, oh my God, I can see myself completely different now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it definitely
Okay.
did. Like just for example, I have been married for going on 8 years. No, 8 years. As long as I've been married for a long time.
A few years.
And when I got married, I wanted to change my last name. However, all of my identification has to have the same name. So that meant, not just changing my social security and my driver's license, but also my green card. And in order to do that, I pretty much had to pay the filing fees for a green card all over again, which was like $800.
Jesus.
And so my attorney was like, just wait. Are you going to become a U.S. citizen? And I was like, yeah. And so that's how I learned that it was like a 4 or 5 year wait for people who had married American citizens. She said, well, just wait the time period and change it once you become a citizen. And so for this entire time, we've had 2 different last names because I wasn't able to change it on my green card without paying,
Right.
almost $1,000.
A lot of money, wow.
Yeah, and so literally the day after I went to the Social Security Administration and the DMV and I changed my name, and that I think was really what helped, being able to look at it on my driver's license
Absolutely.
and see that we have the same last name now. But it's just closing a whole chapter and finally feeling like I have a place that does belong to me because I don't have to worry about being kicked out. Because even
Yeah.
as a U.S. resident, they have the right to be like, hey, this isn't working out, I'm sorry, and you have to go home. And that was...
What do you mean? Wait, hold on.
You can lose your residency. I mean, if they...
the residency. That's right. Okay, all right.
Yeah, you can lose your residency.
Not anymore. She's immune from that.
I'm pretty sure if they can take away someone's citizenship, they would have done mine already.
That's the first to go. So, tell us, illegal immigration is a huge hot button topic these days.
Yeah.
Give us your thoughts.
Minor
I mean,
issue.
it's obviously it's a big thing in the upcoming election. It's I think it's,
and it has been for a while.
Yeah, but it's really coming to a head now. It's like a lot of. I don't
man!
know.
Our boy was trying to put up a wall a few years ago. All right.
Right.
Yeah. No, I'm not pro illegal immigration. I don't feel like there's a true win in it.
Can I ask you also? There's a big back and forth on. I don't know if you saw during the State of the Union address, Biden used the word illegal immigration, and the Democrats ripped him to pieces over it because he was supposed to say undocumented immigrant, but he was talking about a murderer when he said it. He was talking about and then he apologized to the murderer for calling him an illegal immigrant. But is there anything wrong with the term? Does that word make you feel a certain way, illegal immigrant? And if it does, that's fine. I'm just curious. Is that a pejorative word? Do you think, in your opinion?
If it quacks like a duck and it walks like a duck and it
Cheers to
that. It's a duck.
Okay.
So no, I mean it is what it is. There's no reason to sugarcoat it. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not one to sugarcoat things though, so
That's why I knew you were going to be a great guest.
I have no idea what it's like to go through what you've been through, but all I know is that I would feel pandered to. I'd feel like if someone in your situation, as a person like myself, and maybe like yourself too, I don't know, but I would feel like if they didn't feel like I could handle the term.
Oh God, yes.
And they wanted to try to go dance around it, sugarcoat it. I'd feel like they're treating me like a little child.
Yeah, I agree.
To me, it's not necessarily being treated like a little child. It's almost like indignifying to me.
Thank you. I think that's really where I was trying to go with it. Yep.
Like the whole. I was telling Heath literally the other day in the car, if the only reason I was accepted into a school or received a job is because I'm tan and speak Spanish, then I didn't earn it. It's not based off of my merits. I'm being told that if it wasn't for those things, I'm not worthy of this job. I'm not good enough for this job.
That's right.
So I don't want it. I want to be hired by a company that recognizes my hard work and my value and doesn't just see a little tan person.
That's the thing.
That's what it's all about.
That's the thing we've forgotten as a society. The whole Martin Luther King thing about the content of your character rather than the color of my children's skin.
Yep, and that was what it was. That was the whole basis of the civil rights movement, and it's been lost. It's been lost by so many people.
I think it's so funny that now there's such an uproar about representation and, making sure that there's a diversified workspace or whatever, and it's like, so we're right back to picking and choosing because of the color of people's
Thank
skin.
you.
Like
It's
we're
racism.
We're gonna do a full circle
racism.
now.
Racism.
It is. And I don't.
And you touched on something a few minutes ago that really, like, you said, I don't know what exactly you said, but it dignifies the person. It's not so much. I mean, it is also unfair to the regular old white people, but for the person who's being put in a position because they're a certain race or ethnicity, you're doing that person an injustice too. You might be sticking that person in a position that they are not ready to handle, and then causing them to fail. You might be creating a failure. Yeah. And it's wrong.
I feel like interviews should be done blindly, and it should just be like generic first names,
That's how it was until recently.
That's how you're gonna know if like someone's worth, putting in that position. Otherwise, it's just it is racist. I get offended. I'm very controversial in that sense because people understand because I'm an immigrant and the way, my story went that I'd be very pro all this shit. But to me, it's offensive. Like, I hate Hispanic Heritage Month.
Thank you. I would hate White Heritage Month. The same reason I would highly dislike White Heritage Month.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just, to me, it's like, okay, so I'm only worth talking about for this one period of time.
Because you're Hispanic. That's the only reason you're worthy of being recognized.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, why can't I just be recognized for being a hard worker and being driven
and as far as I know, you appreciate Hispanic heritage in general, though, right? Like, you just don't want the month. You don't need the month to do it. Like,
I don't need someone telling me, "Hey, good job at being Mexican." You know what I mean? That's what it feels like.
That's the word pandering that I was talking about. Exactly. Oh my god.
Yeah, it feels like, hey, you're doing a good job at being tan. Like, thanks, but I don't need you to tell me that.
I wish I was better at being tan, frankly.
I don't do a very good job of being tan. I get crispy red every
I know. I just turn red and purple and then white again. That's great.
I think another part of it too is I have mixed children, and my kids are half Mexican and half white, Caucasian. And so I have one little tan boy who looks a lot like me, and then I have one very white kid who it's like you wouldn't know his mom is Mexican and speaks Spanish. Like, he doesn't look it. And so they're gonna have very different experiences in life, and I recognize that already because...
Do you think so?
Yeah. I mean, right now with all the way things are currently, if things don't change, I'm going to have one tan kid that's like, hey, we want you, you're diversified, you're going to make us,
Okay.
And then the other kid is going to be like, oh, you're, what is it? White privileged. And, and that bothers me because...
That's a great perspective.
They're not even realizing, like, he's half Mexican, and this is the same kid that you would want if you asked him what color his mom was, but because of the way he presents, the way he looks, he's going to be treated differently than my kid who very clearly looks like a Mexican. Why is it
if there is such a thing as white privilege, and I'm not saying there's not, I'm not saying there is either, okay?
I think there is.
I'm an open-minded person.
I'll say there. I think there is. Like, it does exist, and that's...
Hold on.
Go ahead.
If there is, and again, I'm a blanket statement here, but it seems to me that everybody who's famous, you hear about, with the opportunity to claim their white half rather than their other half, declines to do so.
And you know what's so funny? My kid that's tan identifies as white. Like, he was so upset about something at school one day, and I'm not raising him to be racist again. I don't see skin color. But he was so upset because his little girlfriend dumped him.
Okay. And how old is he?
He's 7.
Aww.
Okay. And...
Is this the one that get hit in the head with a baseball bat?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. by his brother in Walmart goofing around, all right.
Which is why we're doing this podcast today instead of last week.
And not last week.
But he was dating, he liked a little black girl. And I'm totally fine with whatever they like. And so he came home and he was very distraught. And I said, well, hey, it's okay. Because I think it was that day she had a headache. And so they weren't friends anymore because she had a headache. Yeah. And I was like, maybe her head won't hurt tomorrow. And he goes, I just think that maybe we should just separate the school. And I said, what? And he goes, yeah, we should.
Kids say the darndest things.
And I do not know where he got this from. And so he started telling us how he was going to separate the school. And my husband goes, Jeff, out of curiosity, what side of the school are you going to? And he was like, the white side. I'm white. And I was like, oh.
We got some talking to do, kid.
And I was like, hey, you are a little bit tan like mommy. I don't think you're going to the white side. And he was like, no, but I'm white. And I was like, we'll figure that out later. But he very much, like, he doesn't consider himself to be Mexican or, identify with any of his Mexican heritage. Whereas my other kid is going to be the kid that's more likely to speak Spanish because he's full on embracing it.
And this is the one that looks more white.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's I guess to what you were saying, it's like the opposite of what a lot of, famous people are doing. He's like, I'm not Mexican.
So that's, yeah.
But yeah, they're going to have very different experiences in life, and I think that's a lot of where my opinions.
I think a lot of this conversation we've had comes down to how important it is for people to be able to identify themselves and feel comfortable in their own skin, and know where they feel like where they came from is important to them. I found that to be a recurring theme through everything we've talked about for yourself and now for your children as well. But you just let kids do it on their own. You don't tell them.
Yeah.
You let them to self-determine, all right? And when someone's 7 years old and says that I feel like I'm a girl when I'm carrying the wrong equipment, you don't take that seriously. Like you just said, a rational parent who loves their children allows the child to grow and develop at their own rate and their own pace. And if my son wants to identify as a ballerina, I don't care, okay? I don't care. And just trust our kids growing up. I think that's the big point, big part of things.
It's really just letting them process their feelings.
Uh-huh.
A lot of it.
Oh, for sure.
The majority of it is just, letting them process their feelings and then kind of guiding them through what they're feeling, opposed to telling them how they should be feeling,
Well, tell us about your feelings on illegal immigration overall. Let's start from there as a baseline, and we'll go through maybe some of your pros, negatives, and maybe some of your finer points of being someone who has an incredibly close relationship to the topic. How do you feel about immigration, illegally, legally, or otherwise?
Yeah, so legal immigration, I'm not so much opposed to. I kind of think of it as like, I bought this house, I don't really like it, and I'm going to go and buy this other house.
Okay.
Right? So you can do that. That's fine. It's different with illegal immigration because there's not a win, like I said. There's not a win. You're setting yourself up to be taken advantage of by a government that does not give two shits about you.
Absolutely.
Right. And they keep telling you that they do, and they're pretending to like help you, and they give you all these things and shiny packages and make it look like you know.
They do that to people that have been here for hundreds of years. That's what they do. It's crazy.
Yeah. And to me, it just kind of, I again, with the house analogy, it's like I'm living in this house, and this person wants to come in and live in the house and doesn't, just decides that that's what they're going to do. Mm-hmm. We didn't know anything about the country or the culture or like how the, financially, economically, how everything worked. We just kind of came in and had to figure that out. But there are people who don't care to figure it out. Mm-hmm. I think it's something that's not talked about a lot. There are illegal immigrants who pay taxes because that's one way to show that you've been in the country and how long you've been in the country.
Even Al Capone knew you needed to pay taxes, all right?
Yep.
And
until he got busted.
Until he got busted for not paying them.
The irony. But then there are people who are very comfortable just making their money and keeping it, and then there's the rest of us that have to.
That's the libertarian side that I agree with. But anyways,
that has to carry the weight of that, and then more so though, it's because of the children, because a lot of these people are coming here and they're either having children or they're bringing children. And when you're bringing children, you're setting them up for failure. They grow up feeling like I do, like this is home, this is my country, this is where I belong. And then one day they have to realize it's not, and they have to figure out how they're going to get a job, how they're going to, get an education if that's what they want, how they're going to buy a house. Like, it just complicates everything for them, and they're dealing with the consequences of a decision that was not made by them. Someone else made.
And if they're not as smart or driven as you are, that could be a lot more difficult.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can see that was a huge advantage for you.
Yes. Yeah.
Is it the illegal immigration occurring because it's too difficult to become a naturalized legal American?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so is it too difficult?
It is also too difficult to process. For example, like my aunt has been trying for years to come and visit my mom, and she still can't get a visa to come in.
I wonder why. Why is it so hard?
I don't know.
Because I can't imagine that the same government that wants to tell you they love you and come to our country illegally would also make it so difficult to do it the way that we were supposed to do it for the last couple hundred years.
Maybe they specifically want illegal ones, though.
Do you think that maybe is part of the motivation?
Well, for sure, you make a ton of money off of illegal immigrants.
So you feel like, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, and I'm just trying to clarify. Do you feel like it's purely exploitation?
Yes.
That's the exploitation part.
Yeah.
Is that they want you to do it illegally, so you're a compromised person, rather than coming through easily and legally.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's the advantage.
If they wanted to get rid of all illegal immigrants, maybe, not 100%, but a large portion of them, they could. Because, just for example, in South Carolina, like I said, I couldn't get licensed to be an insurance agent or a cosmetologist without my U.S. residency. I couldn't do that through the DREAM Act. However, and you can't get a driver's license, right, if you don't have a social security number. So if you're not a U.S. resident or a citizen, you can't, or, some other legal, here legally in some other way.
At least in South Carolina. I gotta assume each state issues its own driver's license. I'm guessing it's probably possible in some other state, but anyway.
But at least in South Carolina, you can still purchase a car. And you can still register that car in your name in the state of South Carolina. You can still purchase insurance in your name for the car that you purchased to drive illegally in the state of South Carolina. So if it was really that big
The insurance
an issue,
part I understand. The registration different because that's government run.
right. So if they really, really, truly wanted to crack down on immigration, illegal
It'd be quite
immigrants
easy to do
wouldn't,
so.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to purchase vehicles, and they wouldn't be able to register those vehicles in their name.
So we're really just, it's a situation where I think it sounds reasonable that they need a medial labor workforce
Yeah.
that maybe they feel like the white people won't do, or the naturalized.
I hear that all the time. I don't believe it.
You don't believe that?
I don't believe that. There's plenty of people.
I'm starting to understand that argument.
Citizens, U.S. citizens will do the work. They might not do it for the same price. They'll do the
That's
work.
what it is.
Okay, that's the part.
Yeah, but
if my grandma had a ding dong, she'd be grandpa, right? Okay. But
yeah,
as charming as that quip was.
yeah, no.
But no, that's super interesting because I've never thought it through enough, and when I've heard that before, I've kind of just blown it off.
Yeah.
But it actually sounds reasonable.
And the federal government knows they're here and is okay. Like I mentioned, illegal immigrants can pay taxes. There's a
Of course they can.
The IRS allows for them to file for what's called a tax identification number. And people who do not have social security numbers use that number to file their taxes. So they have to go to the IRS, say, hey, this is my name, my address, and my date of birth.
And the IRS just says thank you.
I think my face just got 2 shades redder.
For you to file your taxes so that you
amazing.
can give us your money.
It's amazing.
I'm going to try to calm down.
And they try to control that by saying, oh, but we're not going to give you earned income credit or any of the other credits
Yeah, of course
that
not.
Americans get. But sure, yeah,
But
pay
pay
your
us.
taxes. Absolutely. Here's
Well,
the numbers
that's
you can do
that's
that.
the most important part of naturalization.
Yeah.
You got to start with the tax paying first.
Those are the questions they should ask.
So, I mean, if they really wanted to crack down, they would. They could.
So, and I'm not
Do
asking.
you think that would benefit the actual, the illegal immigrants would probably, maybe they would, the ones that are here wouldn't benefit from a crackdown, but these people are all being brought here illegally. They're being taken advantage of. There's kids that are coming, getting put into shitty situations. You believe that if there was a crackdown, that would probably be better for the immigrants.
Yes.
You would support a mass deportation of illegal immigrants.
I mean, it sounds harsh.
No, I would too. No offense. I would too.
Yeah.
I think it's exactly because of the analogy you use, because this is our house.
Yeah.
This is not their house.
It's yours too now.
Yeah. When I say our, I mean our house, right? Because you've done it the right way. You did the best you could given your circumstances. But do you have a lock on your door at your house?
Yeah.
Do you have a lock on your door?
I do.
Of course I do. And I bet a lot of the people who vote or vote for politicians who want to bring in, who allow this illegal caravan to come through and all this stuff, I bet they live in, let's say they might have neighborhoods with gates.
Yeah.
and walls around it. They'll do it for themselves, but they don't want to do it for a nation. And I wonder why it's good for themselves personally, for us all to have locks on our doors, but not good on the federal level to have a lock on our door as a nation.
It makes as much sense as all the other shit that they push, man. It's
okay, but do we have any theories on that? I mean, what?
They want the illegal immigrants here.
They do.
What's the advantage?
The money.
The money.
They're paying in taxes. If, for example, again, with the Dreamers, there's all this talk about, like, you know, Social Security, and there's not going to be enough money in there when, you know, it's time for us to retire and all that. But it's like, you have a ton of kids that are currently working, paying into this same fund. Where the hell is that money going? Mm-hmm. They're not going to get it unless they find a way to citizenship. Mm-hmm. So it's all, in my opinion, money driven.
I think they want votes too.
I think
because a lot of states. I know you're not going to vote in South Carolina. You have to show your ID to vote, but a lot of states you don't. And they know that the illegal immigrants. Well, they hope that the illegal immigrants are probably not going to vote the way she's probably going to.
You know what's kind of ironic is one thing that I've noticed in living in the South and just kind of like the way my family was growing up. Mexico, at least my culture. Mexicans think a lot like old Southerners do. Yeah. They're very
Christian.
Very Christian, very family oriented, very right is right.
Very hardworking.
They're conservative.
They're conservative.
So
meaning of the word conservative.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I think it's more of like the newer generation that is like left leaning, but a lot of the way most of us grew up, we don't agree with those values. And the only time that you hear someone agreeing with like a Democrat, it's because that Democrat has already said, hey, I want to like do this for illegal immigrants. And so there's a win in it for them, not necessarily.
But you feel like it's a short-term win, not a long-term win.
Right.
That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
So it may have a backfiring effect if that's what the motivation is.
Oh, for sure.
I love it. Oh my God, that's great.
Yes, for sure. Like, oh my dad is a prime example of that. Like, he is a U.S. resident, but before becoming a U.S. resident, he was always like, we really need to pray for so and so and that they get into office, and that, because they're gonna, hopefully bring the amnesty. And now, dude is like hardcore red.
All right.
Like it changes.
That's such an interesting perspective.
Once you've gotten what you need and you've gotten what you needed out of that person, like the perspective changes. There's not a whole lot of left leaning, I would say. Not that are, if they're coming from the home country, their values, the way they think is very different than the way, Democrats try to make it seem. They don't.
How do you hope that this election season plays out? Or how do you think it will?
I don't know how it's going to play out, truthfully, just because I haven't kept up with how things are going right now.
You did work in pseudo-politics, right? Like in a periphery of politics at one point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is one of the interesting reasons you're here with us, because you have a great perspective on it.
Yeah. The way I hope it goes, I would love to see a Republican back in office, honestly.
Are they going to kill Trump before he gets back?
At some point.
Probably. Okay.
That's what I'm worried about. They're going to try to assassinate the man.
Honestly, at some point, they're going to kill off both Joe Biden and Trump.
Biden won't need any help.
What happens after you've thrown the kitchen sink? Because they've done everything.
That's what I'm saying. If Alvin Bragg fails,
the
the only thing they can do now is kill him because he's going to win.
That's about it.
That's it. So if either he gets convicted in New York or somebody tries to, God forbid, I don't know.
If
we'll
they
see.
put that man in prison.
If they put him in prison, the
Imagine what the
unfortunately,
backlash
you joined our country at the wrong time.
At the right time. The perfect right time. This is interesting. If they put that man in prison, how do people react?
I don't know. It's going to be terrifying. People are going to...
Would they react in a way we wouldn't want to say on the internet?
Yeah.
I think so. Mm-hmm. That would be insanity.
Yeah, it would be total insanity. It's
Yeah.
literally the worst case scenario.
That would be the worst
possible
case
thing
scenario.
that could possibly happen is they convict
I
him,
never
put
even
him in
thought about
prison.
that because it never even occurred to me they probably could.
I mean, he's being tried in
I don't
Manhattan,
think
where
they can.
92%. I think Obama won 92% in the district. He's being tried in Manhattan.
Yeah.
92%. Not Obama. I mean Biden.
Biden.
Biden won 92%. They got to pull a jury of 12 people in Manhattan,
That's
who
not
all are going to be
suspicious.
supposedly fair. Like, come on,
Yeah.
man. The only hope I have is that there's one Trump supporter on that jury that will refuse to convict. That will just hang the jury. There's no way he gets acquitted. Zero chance he gets acquitted. They might hang the jury.
I want them to choose a jury of 12 naturalized immigrants. That's
That'd
what
be
I want them to do. Because
Sam, you in?
number one, they know civics better than the
Yep.
average American.
Yep.
And number two, they have a good perspective on the old Trump side of things too. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting.
We don't want there. You have think, for example, like Salvadorians. They're coming from a socialist government. They know what that does.
I have a lot of empathy for that. A lot of empathy for that. For folks that are coming from communist, they're coming on a raft from Cuba into the southern Florida shores. I have a lot of empathy for that because I can't imagine.
Well, you see how Cubans vote.
Yeah.
They're heavily Republican.
Yeah.
They don't want communism. They just came from communism.
Yeah.
Communism sucks.
There may be a silver lining to the whole illegal immigration thing. These people haven't been Marxist indoctrinated.
Yeah.
They haven't been indoctrinated by the school system of Marxism. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Maybe.
Right? Huh. This has been a great conversation. I like that.
Perspective I never thought of before.
I've never thought of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, because they're our kids here, man. They're being indoctrinated
For sure.
And it's up to us
Even
as
I
parents.
was like I think about my schooling in the '90s, and like it wasn't as bad as it is now, but they definitely taught me liberal ideas. Like in a small town in Pennsylvania,
Pennsylvania's all screwy right now.
Pennsylvania's always been all screwy. Sorry to anybody who still lives there who's listening, but it's a screwy state.
It's funny how close the liberals, the unions, and the mob all get in that one
I know, right?
crazy space right there.
Yeah.
They all seem to be pretty healthy bedfellows together. They all seem to be natural. But anyways, I think we're coming up on the end of things.
It's been a great conversation.
It's been an incredible
awesome.
conversation. With everything, the perspective of the life you've lived so far, is there anything you want to say to close this out for people to kind of understand about it that maybe that you don't think they do?
I feel like I've said a lot,
feel like
during
it too.
during the hour that we've been talking. There's definitely I hope a lot of this was educational for someone and helps them look at the perspective of like the kids and how they're being impacted and maybe double think the way they vote.
Well, cheers to that, guys.
Hey,
Sam, thank you so much for being here. I truly have learned
truly
a lot.
against original liberal.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, like and subscribe, huh?